Hey everyone, I'm currently in the cold white north of Sweden where there's still some snow on the ground. Um, but for the last week in Spain and in Sweden, for the last week, I've been seeing a lot of incredible healing and breakthroughs in people that, specifically in men, that a lot of deep wounds that came to the surface and saw those get healed in ways that I wasn't expecting. I thought I was just going to come here to chill out, hang out with friends, and instead see God do things in people's lives that should have been impossible. But all of it had to do with telling the truth to ourselves, to God, and sometimes to other people if we needed to. And it got me thinking that there's so much of the truth that we hide from ourselves. Before we even hide it from God, we hide it from ourselves because it's not Christian to confess to certain things like pain, like feelings of weakness. There's kind of a stigma in Christian circles, and especially in, quote, masculine circles, for this idea that, oh, men don't cry, or oh, Christians don't have a right to pain. Well, straight up, we're going to sink that one. We're going to torpedo that right now and say Jesus wept. That's a complete verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. Number one, if we claim to follow Jesus, then he says to weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. So, a lot of times, and I've seen this firsthand, and this is also a principle you can just look everywhere. This isn't anything new. A lot of times, people who are struggling for breakthroughs struggle, 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 and nothing comes. And a huge part of that is if you're not telling the truth to yourself, you can't tell it to God. And if you don't bring your wounds before him, they're just going to be left unhealed, and you're just going to keep spinning in the mud, running through that cycle of false identity, shame, blame, all of it, and it's just going to keep that cycle running, and there's not going to be any growth. There's not going to be any renewal. There's not going to be any of those things that you keep hoping and praying for because you're not telling the truth. And so this last week, I've been seeing guys that struggle with some really heavy stuff get straight up healing. Like, not even going to get into it. But one thing that struck me is that it always involved telling the truth. That's what confession is. Confession isn't apologizing. It's just saying, here I am. That's confession. It's just telling the truth. And Jesus says, the truth will set you free. And that's true. What I'm about to say is not a formula. It's just a shortcut to get through all the defenses we build to ourselves. It's just a very quick way of breaking down our own defenses and letting the truth just get out there, because we're afraid to tell it. We're afraid to tell it to God. We're afraid to tell it to ourselves. We're afraid to tell it to others because of whatever fear is there. So what I'm about to say is just a shortcut to cut through the fear. That's it. It's not a formula. And the real kicker of this is that these 4 questions are questions that God asks in the Bible from the beginning to the end. So if God asks the question, you know that there's going to be an answer. So if you're struggling with that, if there's something in your life where you don't know why it's not clicking, here are 4 questions that God asks of people in the Bible. He already knows the answer. He's just asking it to get the person to be honest, because he only does the things we hope for when we're honest. You can't lie. It doesn't work. You can't hide. It just doesn't work. If you hide, stifling the Holy Spirit. You know, and why would you be afraid to hide from the person who knows your heart better than you do? That's a killer, is hiding, concealing, don't feel it, suffer in silence, like the military always loves to say. So here's the 4 questions, and they start chronologically from the beginning to the end of the Bible. The first one, the very first question that God asks a human being is, where are you? It's in the Garden of Eden when Adam and Eve ate the fruit and then they felt shame, so they hid from God. When God asks them, where are you? It's not because he doesn't know, it's because he wants them to tell the truth. Where are you? So take that as a question straight from God. Where are you? Be honest with where you are, what you really feel, what you really believe in that moment, what you really long for. Just be honest. Even if it sounds unchristian, be honest. Because God can handle your honesty, and you can't handle your dishonesty. None of us can. None of us can live in the false identities that we think are going to protect us and actually end up killing us. So number 1, be honest with God and with yourself. Where are you? In life, in belief, in whatever position you're in. Be honest about it. That's the first one. The second question that God asks of a human being is, who told you that? He said that to Adam and Eve when they said, oh, we're naked and we're ashamed. And God told them, who told you that? Who told you that you're naked? I'm not the one who told you that. So this is a really key one when we really examine these beliefs and agreements we make with statements about ourselves. A lot of times God might be asking, who told you that? Who told you that you're not enough? Who told you that you're a piece of garbage? Who told you that you're worthless? Who told you that you have to do all these things to gain approval? Who told you that you'll never measure up? Who told you that God can't love you? Who told you that you're not elect? Who told you that you're a worthless reprobate? Who told you all of these awful things that crush your soul? That make you feel naked and exposed and destroyed? So you can ask that question, or you can let God ask you that question. Who told you that? And seriously look at the truth of that. Because if it wasn't God who told you that, you don't need to accept it. And here's a litmus test for whether or not something comes from God. Straight up, right out of the Bible, and extremely practical. Galatians 5:22-23. The fruit of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. And Paul says, against these there is no law. So, if you want to know if something comes from God, line it up with, does it come from love? Does it bring peace? Does it bring joy? Does it bring patience? Does it bring gentleness? Does it bring kindness? Does it bring self-control? All those things. If it does, you could probably be sure that it's from Christ. If it doesn't, then you need to ask the question, who told you that? And just asking that question, who told you that? Who told you you're worthless? Who told you you're a piece of garbage? Who told you you're a monster? Who told you that God can't love you? Who told you that your life is meaningless? I guarantee you it ain't God who told you that. And if someone claims to be speaking for God and telling you that stuff, you didn't... They're using the Lord's name in vain. And that manipulation, you don't need to be a part of that. So that second question, who told you that? Number 3, Who are you? Or what is your name? That's the third question that God asked of a human being. What is your name? And he asked that to Jacob when Jacob was running from all of these people that wanted to kill him because he was a liar and a deceiver and a thief. In fact, that's even what his name meant. Basically, a deceiver, someone who rides on the success of other people and claims it as its own. I won't go into the story of Jacob. You can read that in the book of Genesis. But basically, he was a liar, a thief, and a deceiver. And so when God asked him, said, "Who are you? What's your name?" It was directly after Jacob had pretended to be his brother and stole his birthright. Jacob deceived his parents, deceived everyone around, and claimed to be someone he's not. So when God asks you, "Where are you?" he's not asking because he doesn't know. He's asking because you're hiding. And he wants you to see that you're hiding and say, hey, you don't have to hide. When God asks you, who told you that? He already knows who told you that. He wants you to see that it wasn't him who told you those awful things. And the third, when he asks you, who are you? What is your name? Be honest with what you believe about yourself. It's not because he doesn't know what you believe about yourself. He wants you to see what you really believe you are. So Jacob said, my name is Jacob. And in that instance that he said that, he admitted, my name is literally deceiver. I believe I'm a deceiver. He had been running for so long, pretending to be people that he wasn't, until when he finally said, look, I'm a deceiver, okay? You want the truth? I'm a liar, I'm a thief, I'm a scoundrel. That's when God said, all right, yes, now we can do something about that. Since you finally admitted to it, we can do something about that, all right? You think that's your name? No, I give you a new name. And that's when he named him basically a name that means prince. Prince. This guy, his whole life going through this whole time thinking that believing that he's a deceiver, believing that he's a worthless piece of garbage, and acting like one. Until God confronted him and said, who are you? Who do you think you are? When he finally admitted and confessed that that's what he thought he was, that's when God said, great, no longer do you get to be called that. I give you a new name. And I give you a new identity. Now you walk in this, and you never get to forget it again. You never get to go back to that old one, because that old one was killing you. Now you get to be in this one, even if you don't believe it. So that third question, who are you? Be honest with who you really think you are, even if it looks unchristian. Tell God the truth of who you really think you are, and then, paradoxically, counterintuitively, that's when he can give you a new name. When you finally confess that that old name is false. So if you're walking in a false identity, if you're trying to be someone that you're not, you're just going to invite pain on yourself. In the short term, you might get praise and awards and things like that. And other people say, oh, look at all the great things that this person is doing. And if you know that it's not who you are, you're just putting off the inevitable failure, defeat, and pain that's going to come from it, and the damage that you cause other people. So that third question, who are you? Who do you really think you are? Be honest with yourself, be honest with your God, and let it go. Let him give you a new identity, a new name. So once you've confessed all those three things, there's a fourth one that is especially hard for Christians to deal with, especially hard for religious people to deal with, especially if you've been given an idea that God doesn't care, that God doesn't give a rat's ass about you. The fourth question, if you're a Christian and you believe that Jesus is God, then this is the fourth question that God asks of a human being. What do you want me to do for you? Let that sink in. If that gives you fear, it probably means that you've grown up in a religion that killed your joy, that killed your trust in the God who loves you. So, be honest with that question too when God asks, what do you want me to do for you? Be honest with him. Be honest with yourself. If you've got unmet needs in your heart, those will lead to damage if you don't deal with them. Unmet needs, legitimate needs that are unmet and unconfessed will always express themselves in illegitimate and harmful ways. We don't even need to get into that. I'm sure you've seen it. You know in your heart what you long for. But if you don't confess it, if you don't accept that you have those longings and those needs, of whether it's for adventure or for beauty or for community or for hope or for all these things, that everything that gets called sin in the Bible is an illegitimate way of trying to meet a very real and legitimate need in your heart. So if you don't confess to God what you really long for, you're not going to believe that he can meet it. And so you're going to try to meet it in ways that have nothing to do with him. And that's just going to cause the same pain and damage that you've been suffering under, and that everyone else around you is going to suffer under as well, because you're not dealing with the truth. You're dealing with the false. And anytime you deal with the false, it's just going to put you more and more into that trap. So that fourth question, when God asks, what do you want me to do for you? Confess. Tell him, Lord, I want this. I have the need for this. I have the longing for this. Even if it feels unchristian, doesn't matter. Confess the truth. Because Ephesians 5:11, do not participate in the evil deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. And this is the key, because everything that is exposed to the light becomes visible, and everything that is visible becomes light. That last part, very few Christians I've met actually believe that, but I've seen it. The things that we expose, the darknesses that we think are just darkness, and we think there is no way that God can go into that and change it. I've seen it. So many people have seen it. It's real. There is no darkness so deep that God cannot turn it to light infinitely stronger. That fear of exposing the real truth, that fear is what keeps us from seeing miracles. That fear is what keeps us from experiencing breakthroughs. But if you give up that fear and you say, fine, Lord, I confess, I have this need. I confess, I have this longing and hunger in my soul for this, that, or the other thing, but I don't believe you can meet it, so I'm meeting it in ways that are destroying me and everyone else around me. Yes, confess that exact thing. Just tell the truth and watch miracles happen. That's as plain as literally just saying it out loud, even if the fear of embarrassment hurts. Because, I mean, let's be honest, if you're at that point, you're going to be embarrassed no matter what you do. You're going to have shame no matter what you do. Pile on. And as soon as you start trying to tell the truth, that's when the shame is going to attack you so viciously that you think it's not worth it. But hold on. That is exactly the point when the breakthrough comes. Tell the truth and watch God do miracles with it. Expose the darkness that you're afraid of. Expose the things that you've kept secret. I'm not talking about with other people. That might need to happen. I'm not saying that. I mean to yourself and to God at least. Things that we hide from ourselves, things that we try to hide from God, as if that can happen. Because I guarantee you try to hide, he's still going to find it. He's still going to poke it. He's going to stir it up until it hurts you so bad that you have to get it out. And it's just a matter of time before your defenses crumble, before you finally say, okay, fine, Lord, I confess that I confess that I feel these things in my heart. For joy, for hope, for peace, for all of these things. It doesn't even matter what it is. It's everybody has different things, and I've seen it in so many different places where we stifle the longings that God put in our heart because we either think, one, that it's impossible, or two, that it's wrong. We don't get to decide what's right and wrong. So if God put a longing in your heart and you know it's from the Holy Spirit, you can ask him and say, Lord, I confess that I have this longing in my heart. What do you want me to do with it? That's when you need to be honest with that fourth question when God says, what do you want me to do for you? Jesus asked that of a blind man. He asked that of a cripple. And he asked that of a woman who was suffering bleeding for 18 years. If he can do it in them, if he can heal them, if he can give them what they ask, he can heal those things that you haven't confessed that you want healing for. I've seen that this whole week of crazy, ridiculous, stupid miracles while I've been here that I didn't come here for that, and yet they just keep happening. That's why I'm making this video, is that those 4 questions are at the root of all of it. If he can do that, he can do anything. I've seen it. So those 4 questions that God asks in the Bible, and you can give an honest answer. And giving that honest answer might just save your life, might just change your life, and might save someone else's. So tell the truth. When God asks, if you feel the Holy Spirit hitting you in the heart and saying, look, you need to tell the truth, you can tell the truth to God to those 4 questions and watch incredible things happen. Might not happen all at once, but it'll start. Number 1, where are you? Be honest with God where your position is. This is where I'm at. This is how I feel. This is what I believe. Don't try to hide it. Number 2, who told you that? Anything that's killing you, anything that's holding you down or pushing you under and makes you feel like you're drowning, anything that's attacking your joy, anything that binds your soul. When God asks you, who told you that? Be honest. Don't try to make it religious. Don't try to make it spiritual. Don't try to cover it up and say, oh, but this is what I was taught in Bible school. So if you know it's not from God, be honest. Tell him the truth when he says, who told you that? Number 3, who are you? What is your name? What identity do you think you have? Who do you think you are? Because at the core, that's the answer. If you've been told your whole life you're a dirt bag, you're worthless, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're clumsy, you're an idiot, all of these things of, oh, you're not enough, you're this, that, and the other thing, and God could never love you, and you're disqualified. Be honest with God and say, look, this is what I believe about myself, okay? This is what I believe. He can give you a new name. He can give you a new name that you might not even believe at first, but then you start to walk into it. By faith, you walk into the new name that he gives you, and you will see that it is true. I know that's hard to believe, and it sounds dumb and stupid and fairy tale, but it's just a simple fact. You confess the identity that you're living in now that's killing you. And you accept whatever identity that he gives you that gives you life. You don't have another option. That old one is going to kill you. The new one is going to give you life. That's just how it goes. And then the final question, when God asks, what do you want me to do for you? Don't hesitate. Don't hide. That's an invitation. That's an invitation to participate in what he wants for your life anyway. When God asks you, what do you want me to do for you? He's asking you, tell me the desire that I put in your heart and in your life. Tell the truth, because I put that in you and I want it to grow. And he'll show you what that desire was really for. All the other stuff that you were trying to meet that desire through, whether that's I don't know, money, fame, adventure, doing stupid stuff of all kinds. He'll show you, look, the desire itself was never the problem. It's the fact that you don't believe that I can meet that desire. That's the problem. That's the whole New Testament. That's the whole Old Testament. That's the whole thing of idolatry. That's the whole thing of all these things where we don't believe that God can actually meet our needs. So we go off and try to meet them in ways that cause damage because we don't believe that God can do what we ask him. We don't believe that God can do the things that he's put in our hearts. Because newsflash, he put those longings and desires in you for a reason, and you can give them back to him and say, Lord, you order them the way you want because this is a mess. Guess what? He can make all things new. He can restore them. He can bind up the brokenhearted. He can give sight to the blind. I know that. He can heal things that you thought were broken forever, but he can renew them. He doesn't force things on us. He doesn't force blessings on us. But if we answer that question honestly, when he says, "What do you want me to do for you?" that's an invitation to participate in the things that he's already put in your heart. So, obedience, if you want to be a good Christian, demands honesty and saying, Lord, this is what I want. Can't hide it anymore. This is what I long for. This is what I desire. This is what I want to see happen. And guess what? When you're honest, when you tell the truth, all of it, to God, to yourself, and if necessary, I'm not saying all the time because that's really situational, but depending on the situation, to others, that's when you see miracles. So those 4 questions, answer them honestly. Where are you? Who told you that? Who are you? And what do you want me to do for you? So I hope that was some kind of an encouragement, and just be honest with God and be honest with yourself, and you'll see incredible things happen. So, bye everyone.